We're in hard times and some of us are going to need a lawyer. And if you need a lawyer, don't just react to a TV commercial. Get a copy of the Lawyers Consumer Directory, which is available absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven store throughout Central Florida. The Lawyers Consumer Directory is going to give you real hardcore knowledge on how to hire a lawyer and a lot of information on issues like bankruptcy, foreclosure, and more. Get the Lawyers Consumer Directory. It's absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven throughout Central Florida.
The Christian Star began as a newspaper whose news focus of interest was of Christians, but it's become a lot more than that, covering issues of concerns to our community, covering issues of national, state, local, and political agendas that affect us today. The Christian Star is available free at any 7-Eleven store. So pick up your copy of the Christian Star Bilingual free at 7-Eleven today.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you every week on Bright House Cable Television. We have been on the air for 13 years now in Central Florida. That's a long time. And we've been bringing you news pertinent to the Hispanic community. I'm here with my co-host, Jose Miranda, and Jose had a radio show. He's joined us. He's been with us for about a year or so. And also Monica Echeverria, who is a community-based activist. How are you guys?
Good, and you?
What's up?
Good, good. Where do you want to launch? Let's launch.
Well, let's talk about the capture and release of the 4 women that were being held by a Latino.
Ariel Castro.
Ariel Castro.
Okay. Well, you're a woman. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
It's crazy because like one of the girls, he knew he was close to the family. It's just crazy how somebody could literally have a mentality to keep that such a secret from everybody around him.
Do you believe his brothers didn't know? They claim, I saw a CNN interview with his brothers, and the skinny, taller brother, I don't remember his name, he was like, every now and then he would gasp for air, you know what I mean? He was really overwhelmed. The other guy was the shorter, stockier guy. He had more of a handle on the direction that he wanted to go in with that. And he was more vocal and more instrumental in getting his message across, which is, we didn't know. And by the way, they all looked like they were, did you catch that?
Yeah, they're all well-fed.
Healthy?
They look well-fed, well-dressed compared to the mugshots and the pictures that they had on the news media the week before.
Well, the brothers might have not known because, well, the girls haven't implemented the brothers. So if they don't implement the brothers, then the brothers pretty much didn't have nothing to do with it.
I find it difficult. 10 years, you don't go to somebody's house.
It's okay they went to the house, though, because according to what news on Channel 6 News that I heard was that one of his nephews went once, but they were not permitted to go anywhere. Nobody asked why he had locks in the room.
And they played loud
just played
music
it out.
and stuff, right? They played loud music.
People did go in the house. It's just it was people he knew, but they were not.
Do you visit your family? You visit your family?
I do,
right?
every Wednesday.
Okay, do they tell you stay in the kitchen and don't go anywhere else? You know? Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's like, if I go into somebody's house, you know, I'm scoping all the time.
You go to every room,
well, if you gotta go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? You go into the front room.
Allowed, apparently.
You know, but, you know, it's like, they've been visiting the house for 10 years and they don't know.
But they got used to that was his way. You know, some people have OCDs that certain things do bother them. So maybe they thought it was something natural or something.
Jose, how do you think this is gonna, for over a week, mass worldwide coverage of the house, and what was hanging in front of the house? A Puerto Rican flag.
And that's the only thing people are going to realize.
So what do you think that's going to have an effect? Yeah, on the community. I mean, on the
community at large. I seen that is a Hispanic neighborhood, and they're used to crime levels being a certain way. Probably not too much.
And you don't think that's going to have like a racial implication?
Yes,
or,
for someone else, for somebody on the outside saying...
From outside that neighborhood.
From
Yeah, that's
outside
what I'm
that neighborhood,
saying.
yeah.
Because it was on TV
Yeah.
worldwide.
I
So-
understand that, but if you think about it, he didn't only take an American girl. He also took a Puerto Rican girl.
Yeah, but
So
I
that's the
understand
only
that.
way where it will not. If it would have been him with just all the 3 girls were of white American, then
Well,
maybe
that's an
there would
interesting
be
point.
another controversial. Because in this
Yeah, but the
case, he
thing
was not
here-
racist to one certain race. He didn't kidnap all American
But it
girls.
wasn't a racist issue. The issue that would
But
become
people can't
racist...
take it like that, is what
What
I'm
would
saying.
become racist is the barroom conversation, the conversations in the hallways of schools and things like that, where they will say, well, look at those Puerto Ricans, how they act.
But that's discrimination
what they
because
do,
it could
what
have
they
been.
do.
Of course
he
it is.
happens to
And
be
then,
Puerto
and then
Of
you
Rican.
course
have,
it's discrimination.
And on top of that, you know, your story, and let's make a little connection here of the Mint saying that Hispanics' IQ are lower.
Right.
You know what I mean?
On the immigration
And,
issue, right.
and on the immigration issues, right? And that
And then
kind of-
tie it into
and they
it,
tie
right.
it into this. They say,
Right.
okay, the guy wasn't very bright.
Yeah, but
You know
it's
what I
that
mean?
okay.
Right.
But he had a mental condition. There's a that's called a disease. People that are pedophilers in that sense. And in 2004, he wrote, and I read on the news or on a report that he wrote a letter saying that he had something wrong with him. He knew he was a pedophiler and that he was one of these people that go after children. He knew it himself. He just never exposed the letters, but the investigators did find these letters in his houses. So he knew he had a problem. And when it comes to these problems of predators and stuff like that, it doesn't pick a certain race. It can happen in any race. So if people are going to project and now
But he was-
discriminate
he-
because of that,
But
that's not a legit reason
He was
to
caught by
discriminate the
his
rest.
brother with a little girl 2 times.
Right.
And the brother, and he gave a story, and the brother never, he let it go by.
Just like the neighbors. Nobody paid attention to anything.
Well, you can go back to the police department that has been out there on a couple of cases, too, that apparently...
But they're denying.
didn't
They're
find
denying that there was never no reports
Because
from the
it-
neighbors.
because
They're
there's no
protecting
records.
themselves. There's no.
record.
Well, according
But
to them, there's no records.
But there's also an ongoing issue between the community and the police department, in which case they're supposed to have some sort of community meeting to discuss the fallouts and better communications between the two.
You know, I understand
Boy, that sounds like
but
the
that's
60s
just
and
like,
70s, doesn't
they
it?
already, this neighborhood was
I
a
mean, that's
crime
like-
area, so that's
like
probably why the
Rodney
police
King
didn't
all
even
over
bother.
again. Let's
Well,
let's
these
get
are
the
neighborhoods-
police and the community together
Right.
again, and let's talk how we can.
Well, these are combat
kumbaya, you
neighborhoods.
know?
These are combat neighborhoods. You know, officers do the minimum what they have to do to keep life
Yeah, but
moving.
they gotta have Puerto Rican officers there. Puerto Ricans,
I
a
am-
lot of Puerto Ricans in
I am
there.
But he
Sure.
was accused of several other things. He was, you know, he had investigations alone. He never broke the law, but the time he was a bus driver, he left a child in a bus,
Right.
and they went to that, but nobody bothered to go in the house.
Well, this is a
They said
situation where
he
it fell
didn't
through
do
the
anything.
cracks. He fell through the cracks.
He really fell through the cracks
Okay.
by his neighbors and also by the police.
But we need to change that. But the focus here, and going back to the next subject that we're going to cover, is people out there are going to say, this is happening because this is an example of how the minorities treat themselves. So if they act in such a manner to demean themselves because they're uneducated, incapable of doing things, then why do you expect them to be part of our greater society?
Okay, but that's
And that-
okay.
that
but
leads to the
there's
immigration
okay.
issue.
The reason the immigration issue though is not touching. Puerto Ricans are not immigrants.
Yeah, but there's a lack of a tremendous lack, even by elected officials,
Of separating.
Puerto Ricans from all the other Hispanics. They lump them together.
I
They do.
understand that, but we're not immigrants. And if you look
That's-
at a lot of the accomplishments in the United States, the space program and a lot of other accomplishments were done by Puerto Ricans.
I mean,
So if
they're not
they
being
can't-
touted. They're not being touted. They're not being put forth. What's being put forth
But
is
you're trying to link these two things together, so that's how I'm on linking them.
This pot is full of Hispanics, and they're not taking the time to say, that's an Ecuadorian, that's a Mexican, that's a green
No,
person.
you're Latin. That's it. They're putting all
Okay,
the
so
Latins in one.
why don't we do? You're Puerto Rican, right?
Yes.
You're Puerto Rican.
Yes.
Right? Last time you looked, right?
No, I'm probably more Puerto Rican than you are,
Yeah,
but that's
I doubt
okay.
it. I doubt it. You come from where? The Bronx?
No,
Where?
I was born in Jersey but never lived there. I was raised in Puerto Rico and here. That was it.
No, so you were raised in Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rican. A lot of Puerto Ricans say that you're not Puerto Rican unless you were born in Puerto Rico.
Right.
Well, I was 3 months old when I was sent to Puerto Rico, so
Okay.
pretty much I never experienced.
Okay.
I've never seen snowfall. Let's just put it. I've never seen snowfall.
Okay, let's talk about DeMint, because that leads into this former Senator DeMint,
Right.
who was director of the Heritage Foundation.
Who
and that was
is
something
currently
that
currently
Jose
the
looked
head.
that up, and he brought this story in
Right.
for us. Let's
He's
talk about that.
currently,
Jose.
he hasn't resigned?
No, no.
I thought I read he
no,
resigned.
he resigned from Congress.
Oh, Congress.
He resigned from Congress, which he's been there since I think 2005 or so, and then he resigned, and then he went to Heritage House. Heritage House is a think tank, okay, to conservatism, and they're supposed to come up with these grand ideas of how to improve the party.
The Republican Party.
The Republican Party. And well, the country.
It's like a think tank.
It's
right?
a think tank because they want to improve the country. In any event, a study was made by a guy named Rayner.
Jason Reichwein.
And Mr. Reichwein made
Rich Wine.
Rich Wine
Jason
It
Rich.
depends. I don't know. Right could be Reichwein. Could be Richwine.
R-I-C-H-W-I-N-E.
Okay.
There we go. We spelled it out just in
So I
case.
slap, man.
Rich Wine.
Okay, so Mr. Rich Wine wrote a thesis
And he
at Harvard.
Oh, okay.
At Harvard University, and that was incorporated into the papers that Mr. DeMint and the Heritage Foundation put out,
So this was
lambasting immigration.
So this was an official publication or an official release of the
thesis.
Heritage Foundation.
Right, it's official release.
So this guy wrote it. He gave it to Heritage Foundation or
Right.
co-authored it,
Right.
and it was
Co-authored.
attached to Harvard. This guy, Jason Reichwein or whatever,
Yeah.
he actually was at Harvard, right?
He was
He
at
actually-
Harvard. He's
Which
a
Harvard is
doctor. He has a
considered
doctorate.
Harvard
He's
is
a
considered
doctor.
a liberal bastion of education, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter on that aspect.
Yeah. So
That's just where he
took-
got his education.
Yeah. Okay. So he gave it.
Or at least you wrote the thesis for it.
For it.
And
You got
okay,
it.
let's get down to what it implied.
It implies that, first of all, that immigration is going to cost the United States in the next 50 years $6 trillion, over
6.3 trillion.
60, I
Trillion.
think you said.
6.3 trillion.
6.3.
That's a lie. Go ahead.
All right, in 50 years.
Yeah.
Also, it's going to make it a welfare state. He's saying that all the immigrants that are coming into this country will decrease the value of education and worth all the way down the line. They won't have a 10th grade education to keep up with white people here in the United States. And he specifically named Hispanics. They will not be able to keep up, not just this generation, but 4, 5, and 6 generations from now that
So,
are not
Jose,
even
let me
born.
ask you a very. Are you going to go back? Are you going to give up your citizenship and go back to Puerto Rico?
Well, this
Based
this
upon what
goes
the
back
men
to
say.
this melting pot where this guy and his cohorts think we're all a part of, and don't realize how well educated
Look, we got
Latinos
proof
are.
right here. You're
okay,
well-educated.
and how far they've come and the things that they've accomplished. But you will never know it for this type of propaganda that's being put out there. And he's received a lot of controversy on it, and he's not backing down from it. Mr. Red Wine there,
Rich Wine.
he's resigned from his position with Heritage House since then.
So this Heritage Foundation. So the mint is still there.
The minister, he's still the head.
But he's right now getting a lot of.
Flack.
He's getting.
Well, he's probably getting a lot of flack from his own party,
ambushed.
because his own party.
No, they're inclusive. That's how they
but
become.
doesn't he have-
They're including us.
The Republican Party
Are being inclusive.
has to
Right.
connect with the Hispanic community.
Okay. Well, they
If
are.
they don't
They're
connect
working
with
very
the
hard to
Hispanic
connect.
community, the Republican Party will slowly disappear, and something else will replace
Well,
it.
basically, they're saying you're
Doesn't he have a
you're a
bad-
dumb SOB.
Yeah.
Doesn't he have a
basically.
bad record though? Political record?
He's been in tons of committees, okay, and tons of committees. If you look at his record overall, you see a lot of nays versus yays on things. It's been reported by other publications and other news networks that he has not been the stalwart that he pines himself to be. However, he's been a power broker behind the scenes. He's trying to push people out up front. Like Engel and stuff like that. Those kind of people he's pushed forward
Well,
out
there's
there.
no question. Well, he made a big mistake here.
Well,
There's
he
no
has.
question about
Okay,
that.
we know the
He's
what
made
is
a
it?
big mistake.
The 8. What are the 8 that are trying to pass
And
the
it's
immigration
like, you know,
reform?
you get people who lose their way, or they're old timers.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're still trying to hang on with old views or past views. There are still people that think blacks should drink in water fountains.
Well,
that's
yeah.
a reality.
Well, that's
There's
reality.
a guy a quarter mile from my house, I pass his house every day, that has a 10-foot Dixie flag hanging from his front door.
And we all know what the indications are for that.
Yeah, so, you know, this is a guy who's still in that era. You know, obviously, he's still in that era, and he is a relic.
This is a think tank from the Republican Party.
Well,
For
then he has to-
conservatism.
Then what has to happen is,
For conservatism.
what we have to do is watch what's going to happen, because the Republican Party right now will get rid of this guy and replace him over time. It's going to happen, because they cannot have a guy like that in a position.
Well, so far
of
he's standing very.
He's standing
course.
strongly, but that's because he doesn't want the immigration reform to be
Racists
passed.
always stand strongly behind their position. You want to know something, Jose?
He's a Southerner.
I had a guy come to my office.
Yes, from South Carolina.
Okay, I had a guy come to my office. This guy was a very well-presented white business person who lives in Orlando. And we were discussing business on a project. And I was there, Lisa, my assistant, and a couple of other people were around the table. And he said, you know what? Why don't you Hispanics stay working in the Hispanic community, because that's what you really know. And we were working on a project that was not Hispanic. We came up with the project that was not Hispanic.
And he wanted to touch the Anglo market.
And he came up with that statement.
He was being inclusive.
He just wanted to take over one side of it. Yeah.
So he was either saying, you know what, this project is really good, because he was representing the client at that time. He was one of the people from the other side, and we came up with the project. So the client sent him in to talk to us, because the project was already accepted. So, and that's a statement that he made. Why don't you Hispanics stay in the Hispanic community and not work outside the Hispanic community, because that's what you do best. Now, two things. Number one, he's trying to push us back so that he can grab a bigger piece of the project.
Sure.
Or he really believed that. And if he really believed that, now this is a guy who is a very nice guy.
Where is the Hispanic community at? I mean, are we just cloistered in some small location?
Yeah, it's called Earth. It's called Earth. Very small compared to the rest.
That the Hispanic community
so the question is, so I got into a conversation with somebody, and the guy says to me, you know, he's got a really good heart. He's not a racist. And I said, a lot of people with good hearts are racist.
Are racist, right?
They don't know it.
Yes, there's a
that
definition.
It's embedded. It's embedded in them. And sometimes it comes out when they're angry, sometimes it comes out when they're emotional. In this particular instance, it did come out. And my answer to him was, there's a lot of people that have a good heart that are racist. Separate the two. They have children, they love their children, they love their mom, they love their dad, they love their dog. But there's a line there.
They don't love Hispanics.
They don't love people that are different, where diversity comes in. You know what I mean?
Again, it goes back to that issue.
And this happened 3 weeks ago.
And it goes back to the issue of...
No, you told me the story, but it's like racist. Like an example, my father. He says he's not racist, he gets along with everybody. But if I was to date or marry an African American, that he doesn't permit. So it doesn't
what
matter.
Does he have to permit or not permit?
No, but this is the thing. That is a form of racism.
That is
People
racism.
believe that just because they get along with the Hispanic community, but when they don't permit them to merge in this case, a business, in a business atmosphere.
Hispanics are racist within each other.
Or merge, because
there's a lot of conflict between the different origins of Hispanics.
That's right.
Everybody thinks Hispanics is one thing. Ecuadorians hate Colombians and Peruvians, and vice versa. These countries have been at war. Chile was at war. Spanish-speaking was at war with Argentina. Argentina was at war with Chile. But here in the United States, everybody identifies them as one group, and they're really not one group. They have different
But we tend to stand more in their countries. They stand more apart from the other cultures or the other, like you said, the Colombians and the Argentine or whatever. But here, they tend to stand a little bit more closer because we are
Let me throw this one at you. Puerto Rican flag on this guy's house. Okay, Puerto Rican. Now, how do you think other Hispanic groups reacted to that? Hey, the Puerto Ricans are doing it again.
That's right. They're doing it again. That's exactly right.
Right.
Again, this is this racism that gets perpetuated. Doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to be stopped by any particular race. It's just finger pointing, and it goes back again to this immigration issues, which is a very hot topic. something like 11 to 12 million immigrants.
You know something? They're pushing that 11 million, and I hear that on TV all the time.
Right.
At the very beginning of all of this, it was 20 million.
Right.
Now it's 11.
Now they cut it down in half, and I'm beginning to wonder, let me finish, I'm beginning to wonder if that was because they're softening the impact of passing the bill. What do you think?
It's because the bill now controls an age group. Remember, the bill before was everybody. Now it's 30 and under. If you're 30 and under, you'll be able to become a citizen. They changed
Is that true?
it.
I hear that.
I read it to you.
Okay.
When you said, "Oh, what's the update on immigration?" I read it to
Okay.
you. It was 30 and up.
But
They
in other
changed
words, mom and dad can't stay in the country.
In other words,
your son can stay in the country.
Now, if you have a child, yes, but now they're doing anybody because they know there's people that have been here a long time. So
Now,
if you're
isn't that a
30
form
and
of
under, they're
racism?
automatically.
Isn't that a form of racism?
But that's how they're trying. That's how they
Okay.
brought their numbers down. That's how they were able. The Super 8, whatever
You want to
they're
know
called.
something?
That's how they were
I think what's
able
going to happen, this is typical politics.
bring the number down.
What's going to happen is they're saying 11 million, 11 million. Well, we never actually had a real count.
Right.
So once they open
That's
the
another
gate,
thing.
come on in, guys, come
They'll
on
have
in.
that.
It's going to be 18 million.
It's true. Or how are they sure it's?
Well, they have to do it by a date.
But they did put. They put some.
Let's go back to this other
some
statement.
rules,
Let's go back to this other statement about income. Okay, what's your take on that these immigrants are going to cost us money?
They're not. They're going to produce.
They're going to produce because they want to tax them. That's also the thing. They're going to
they
tax
wanna
them
work.
back. That's when I read it to you, it also said they're going to tax them back to the point where they've been working here.
Okay.
So they're going to pay back taxes.
Okay.
Now they are going to get a discounted rate to become citizens. It's a
Mm-hmm.
$500 fee. So they're going to accommodate them in a way
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to benefit us, but at the same time it's not going to break them.
Jose?
They're going to break them anyway.
They will,
There's
because-
this whole concept, and it sounds
they-
so clean that we're just going
They're
to
just
charge them.
cushioning the
We're
impact,
going to
like
charge
he
them
says.
taxes all the way back to the beginning of life here. It's BS. Okay, let's get real. You cannot do that to these people. They come here and they work very hard. They're going to contribute, unlike Mr. DeMint, who says this is going to be a welfare state, and that all we're going to do is increase the welfare rolls because behind these guys. No one will achieve a higher than a 10th grade education or less. Those are comments that will hurt everybody.
Okay, well, Jason Richwine, this was a thesis. It was not, does he have actual proof? A thesis is not
Well, it's a study. It's a study.
sure, record. It's a study,
it's
but
a study that has to be presented with facts.
And it's because now these immigrants are not citizens and they can't get the proper education. Have you thought it could be
That's
that
not
the
true.
cause
That's
of the
not
problem?
true. Hold it. That's not true. Because in the United States, every kid goes to school.
Right.
That's
Every
kids,
kid by
but
law,
we're talking
legal or illegal, they go to school.
But the
Texas
thesis-
is giving them money to go to college, fully paid college.
Okay, how long? This thesis was done in 2009.
Right.
Okay? And that time, these immigrants, how about if they came as adults to here?
No,
then what happens is they're not going to fulfill education because they're not going to get educations. Their kids might be able to get educations, but they don't. So they fall into that percentage of that low thesis of the lower IQ. So that's another thing you have to take consideration.
No,
At what
wait, I
age range
disagree.
they took.
This guy made a statement very clearly that the next 5 or 6 generations, they're not even born. The seed has not even been planted.
He doesn't know.
Are going to be ignorant.
You know why?
Because the parents
I'll tell you
are not
why.
educated,
I'll
so
tell
they
you why.
believe that they're not going to follow in
No,
their
that's not
education.
true. I'll tell you why.
Sometimes that's
I'll
what
tell you
the
why.
assumption is.
Because 6 generations from now, Obama will still be president. He's going to shut down all the Hispanic schools.
No,
There you go again. There you go.
No, I'm kidding. But you know,
it can't be. His term eventually will be over.
Stats actually prove that the immigrants are higher than 11. It's going to be more like somewhere between 15 and 18 million, the real number. Number 2, that they're going to contribute more than $1 trillion to the economy, okay, positively, and that these people remember that they're not in the system, so they cannot avail themselves to all of the benefits of the system because they're here illegally.
Right. They couldn't go for food stamps and stuff, benefits. They couldn't use state benefits because
they can use some benefits, they can use some medical benefits,
but
in
to
some
a certain
states,
point. But they're
in some
limited.
states.
Exactly.
But
not in
the
all
reality is they're self-sufficient more than the average American is
Exactly.
self-sufficient
Yes, they are.
because they have to work to survive.
Yes, they are.
So they're not on breast milk here. You know what I mean?
No.
They're carrying their own weight. Now, the good thing for the United States is that the United States is losing the Social Security battle. The Social Security system is insolvent. Now,
And by them contributing, they will contribute to the Social Security.
That's exactly right. They're going to bring in 15 million people.
They will be contributing to
15
all
million
that
people
stuff.
are going to be bringing money into that system once they become legal.
Right.
So, you know.
And the political side is that they're afraid. That there is Republicans are afraid that all these immigrants will become Democrats.
You want to know something? I think.
Or they're probably afraid that they might get educations and actually take over most businesses here in the United States. Have you ever thought of that thesis?
I know
because you're ignorant.
that the increase in population of Hispanics is going to determine who's going to be president. I mean, without the Hispanics, Obama would not be president. So the Hispanics going into the next election, which will probably be Hillary Clinton versus Bush, okay, former governor.
Really?
They're going to run off against each other. Now, notice that the Republican Party is already talking about Bush. Bush is married to a Mexican, okay? They speak fluent Spanish in the house. They have Spanish culture.
And they have Spanish servants, right?
No, they have family. Their family is all Mexican. I mean, you know, the kids speak fluent Spanish, and the kids who are now adults from that particular group, okay, are not white. When you look at them, they're not the color white. So they have a perfect candidate in Bush to grab the Hispanic market if they're smart.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But they're not. I don't know.
I don't think this includes. With comments like the Heritage Fund,
look, you can that's like taking George Wallace and reviving him. Listen, we're out of time. We're out of time. I'd love to take it up with you, but next week we're going to be back, right? Okay. This is Danny Ramos on Hispanic Speak Out TV. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it. We've been on the air on Bright House for 13 years. This show has been repeated every single week for the past 13 years. We'll see you next week, same time, same station. We're in hard times and some of us are going to need a lawyer. And if you need a lawyer, don't just react to a TV commercial. Get a copy of the Lawyers Consumer Directory, which is available absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven store throughout Central Florida. The Lawyers Consumer Directory is going to give you real hardcore knowledge on how to hire a lawyer and a lot of information on issues like bankruptcy, foreclosure, and more. Get the Lawyers Consumer Directory. It's absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven throughout Central Florida.
The Christian Star began as a newspaper whose news focus of interest was of Christians, but it's become a lot more than that, covering issues of concerns to our community, covering issues of national, state, local, and political agendas that affect us today. The Christian Star is available free at any 7-Eleven store. So pick up your copy of the Christian Star Bilingual free at 7-Eleven today.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1,000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que la unión está a la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-0850.
¿Necesitas un abogado? Detente. No contrates un abogado simplemente por haberlo visto en un anuncio comercial. Lawyers Consumer Directory te ofrece la solución para todo tipo de problemas legales, tales como inmigración, bancarrota, divorcios, entre otros. Y hasta te ayuda a cómo contratar un abogado. No te rompa la cabeza buscando la solución cuando la tienes en tus manos. Adquiérelo gratis, sí, absolutamente gratis en cualquier 7-Eleven.